belonged to my father-in-law.
Right.
I know that he bought it in 1943 from a dealer in Tenby.
Right.
And we know it by James Webb.
Well, indeed, it is certainly by James Webb. I looked at the signature, as one always does with a picture, and it's down here, and you can't actually make James Webb from it easily. But the clue, really, for me, was the quality of the interpretation of this boat being hauled in and the figures. And indeed, the view through to the beach huts here, the typical sort of Victorian beach huts of the 1850s, 60s. Images, similar images, in fact, we saw earlier on in the programme. It must be one of the best pictures that Webb ever painted. It shows, I think this is Lexden Terrace, and a view right across the bay to Giltar Point, which is over here. A fantastic picture. There are a few points that I must say, as it were, on the downside of it. Its condition. No holes, but it is dirty. It is cracked. The paint is drying out in places. So it could do with some tender, loving care, frankly, to put it in good order. Now, have you ever had it valued?
No, we haven't.
Well, in its present condition, I would confidently value it at auction between about £20,000 to £30,000.
The first I saw of it was in about 1948. My uncle acquired it, bought it, brought it home, and he died young and left it to his sister, my mother, and she left it to me. I inherited it 1985. But
right.
Other than that, I don't know anything about
right.
it, no.
The proportions to me are not of the Sheraton period, the first great period of satinwood furniture. They're not that 1790s proportions. It's not big enough in a way, and at the same time it's not small enough. It's a mid-size, which wasn't really made in the 18th century.
No.
So that points to me automatically that it's probably a later 19th century or getting towards the Edwardian period, so 120 years old. But also the wood itself, this wonderful, as we call this, satin wood. The type of wood like this came from the first 18th century wood, came from the West Indies.
Yes.
And then as those sources became non-commercial and more difficult to get out of the forests and ship over to England, they started taking pieces from the Dutch East Indies, the East Indies. Most of the West Indian satinwood has more movement in it, so it's more satin-like, more like silk and tissue material. So that really, to me, that and the proportions date it towards the late 19th century. So it's a typical late Victorian lock, possibly 1880, 1890, something like that. A very good London lock maker. So this has been made by a top dollar cabinet maker in a major London showroom, Holland or someone like that, Edwards and Roberts, one of the big London cabinet makers. And let's just see what it looks like inside. It's in such wonderful condition. Oh, look. And doesn't it open beautifully? So the cylinder bureau is a French 18th century idea. The trouble is they often jam, but this one's working perfectly. It really is in lovely condition. Well, in a shop, this would cost you certainly a minimum of £8,000.
8,000? I was expecting around about 2 or 3.
There you go.